everybody. How are you today? It's so great to see you. Welcome into our first session of March. We are here. I am here. Hi, you guys. How are you? Hi. I was just reading your comments while I was waiting for this to kickstart. And I want to talk about your tools, first of all, because there's quite a few questions in the tools, and I kind of want to clarify all of that for you. But welcome in to your first session of Soul Shift for this new month. I hope you're excited and ready. I'm so excited I can't even begin to tell you. Truly, because we are turning the wheel a little bit tonight. And we're moving from one phase of alchemy to the next, and it's an exciting transition and transformation. Let me explain. Thanks, you guys. Let me explain what's happening with your tools. And by the way, we've emailed, we've posted about this, so we have tried to let you know about what's going on with the tools, but some of you may not have seen it, I'm guessing, from the feed because there were so many questions. So before you guys try to answer each other, let me try to answer you directly too. And then Alexis, hi Alexis, would you do me a favor and any other questions about tools once I'm done chatting about them, Alexis will manage, because my goal, as you know, in our classes right now is to really be focused on the learning for the first part of the class at your request, and then to take questions at the end. But tools are important, and I want to explain to you what's going on with tools. Are you ready? Okay, so tools were delayed this month because the chalice, you know, that big, gorgeous, jeweled chalice that's coming in your tools. So, unfortunately, what we could not do is ship the tools that were in the house already in one batch and the chalices in another. Because it may not seem like it to you, but that would cost literally so much money. I don't want to put a price tag on it. So unfortunately, without raising the price of tools, I can't ship things twice to everybody around the world. It's not feasible. But the good news is we don't really need our tools until week 3, because everybody's gotten their Crystal Masters ring for next week. Everybody's got it. They've all shipped. They shipped a long time ago. So everybody's got their Crystal Masters tools for week 2. If you haven't gotten yours, it is not a Sage Goddess situation, Lisa Cunningham. It is a USPS or a Postal Service situation, because they've all gone out. Now, we can certainly help you, with tracking and things. You can also go to your account page and you'll see tracking information there. But all of the Crystal Masters tools have arrived. You need your tools for week 3 in this class, and they will all arrive to you by week 3. You do not need tools for tonight, other than what I'm going to explain to you right now. You need tools for week 3, and you need tools for week 4, and you need tools for week 2. So all of the Crystal Masters tools shipped a long time ago. If you have not gotten yours yet, it is a postal situation. And bear with them, because if I think my life is overwhelming and complicated, I can't even imagine what it's like to be in the postal business right now. Okay, your tools that you need for Soul Shift will arrive to you before week 3, and that's when you need them. That's when we're going to be making perfume, when we're going to be journeying, and we will be using our chalice. I have a whole ceremony planned for session 3 for your tools, and so all of your tools will be used then. Okay, so tonight we don't need tools other than what I'm going to show you in just a minute, which is not technically what I'm going to show you tonight. You don't need to do, but I'm going to do it, and I'm feeling inspired to do it based on my meditation, so I'm going to show you. So anybody who doesn't know where your ring is, check your tracking and follow up with your domestic or international carrier, because that I know for sure. And it's not at Sage Goddess. None of the rings are at SG. They have all gone out. So it just may not have been picked up by, USPS may not have additional tracking for you yet. Please follow up with your mail providers, okay? With the other tools, they are coming. Here's what I want you to know. We don't anticipate delays with next month's tools, by the way, because we really are ordering and getting things manufactured early. We had this month's tools manufactured early as well. Can I explain to you what's happened? I live in Los Angeles. Sage Goddess is in Los Angeles, and we have one of the biggest ports in the world here. And there is an almost mile-long backup at the port because of COVID. In other words, for example, my Oracle cards have been at the port since, I believe, January. Okay, they're here, they're in the country, they've arrived, they're at the port, they're in line to be received. But because so many port workers have COVID, and because so many of the whole thing has broken, the whole system has completely collapsed. So I don't anticipate we're going to have any other challenges with shipping and arrivals after this month, because my understanding is the port's going to get worked out. But we actually took the kids this weekend. We've been taking the kids to show them because it's crazy. We went for a drive. The port, there is a line from the port that looks like it's backed up to Catalina Island. It's insane. So I know a lot of people, depending on where you live, COVID may not even be an issue for you. And bless you, I'm so happy for you. If you live in a major city or if you live near a port, you see the real-time effects of COVID. It has completely shut down import-export to the entire continent, to all of North America. And I see the backup in real time. So anyway, we've done our part. We ordered these chalices months ago. I think it was before January. And everything was here, everything had arrived, and everything's just sitting on boats in crates, and there's nothing we can do about it. So we're doing our best. I just want you to know that, I don't want you to get frustrated with TMSG, and I don't want you to get, you know what I mean? Because it's not like we're holding on to your stuff and we don't want to ship it or any of these things. There's this whole interdependent system, and my hope is, if people will do the good work of getting vaccinated this year, and if we can get this thing under control, it impacts so many people in so many industries I can't even begin to tell you. And, we are the least of everybody's concerns, right? There are bigger, more important items on those boats that need to come into the dock for other people. So anyway, thank you for seeing us. Your tools will arrive to you before week 3. Crystal Masters is already in flight. Most of you should have it. It was in flight a couple of weeks ago. And we're just hoping for the best. We're just hoping for the best. It's an anomalous situation. And I have to tell you, in all my years, I've never seen anything like it. And it's funny, I was talking to my dad about it, and he said, Athena, it's crazy to me, to be 80 years old, and I've never seen anything like this happen in the United States. It's such a paradigm shift from what we're used to. So thank you. we're crossing our fingers too. And I feel for those people who are out there, and for the port workers, the dock workers, for the people who are on the boats, having to sit out there in the middle of the ocean, the Pacific, waiting for their turn to come into port. It's insane. So thank you for understanding. I just took a few minutes to explain all of that to you, because I think depending on where you are in the world, it may seem like COVID isn't real, or it's not a thing, you know what I mean? And where you are, it may totally have blown over and it's not an issue. I have friends in certain parts of the US and parts of the world where COVID's not even part of their reality, but it is really still affecting a lot of people. And in particular, it's really impacting the global shipping. And it just kind of is what it is. So I'm really happy for those of you who are getting vaccinated, and I'm going to do it as soon as I can too. And then I hope we're just going to be on the other side of this and we can move forward, and on we go. But if you have any questions, let me know. That's the best information I have for you at this time. But COVID sucks. Especially for those of us who are trying to work with people in other countries. And I have to tell you, when we bring you tools, we are supporting, and this is why I try to bring you those interviews and stuff so you can see, we are supporting people in small villages around the world. You know what I mean? So it's really important that we continue to do the work that we do, because it allows those incredible humans and their families and their workers and their teams to thrive and survive. So it's important that we continue on, but we all have to be kind of just still patient. And I know it's so weird, a year later, to tell you that we're still in the throes of it here. Yeah. And we're doing our best to keep a good attitude about it too. I had a package arrive to me. When did it get here? What's today? Wednesday. Got here Thursday of last week, I think. It was mailed to me in November. No, it was, it came from overseas. But November, December, January, February, March, like I'd kind of given up on it. And I literally, when I opened the door and I saw the package sitting on my doorstep, I almost cried because I had given up. I thought, well, I had no tracking. I was just like, well, it's in God's hands now. And it arrived and I was like, great. You know? So that's kind of where we are at the moment. So, but we're working as hard as we can for you. We really are. And our team is so frustrated. And we had 2 products listing next week that were supposed to be here 2 months ago. And they were supposed to be here, then they were supposed to be here on Friday. They haven't arrived. We're moving our entire product lineup around for next week. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. My world's really weird, if you can imagine that. Did you really? Michelle Miller just got a Christmas card that was postmarked 12/22. Maybe you weren't supposed to get it till now. Okay. No, Melissa, we're not talking about class yet, but I like to give you the 411 on tools because I think it's important for you to know. Now we're going to talk about class. Now, tonight, I'm going to show you what I'm doing. You don't have to do this, but I told Alexis about it. She really liked the idea. I was kind of guided to this in meditation this morning, so I thought, I'm going to do it. Tonight, we leave behind calcination. So now I'm going to focus here. I'm not going to be looking at the feet as much, so if you have questions, I'll come back to your questions at the end of our time, but I really want to focus right here with you. I'll keep an eye on you for major questions that are coming up, but for the most part, I'm going to let Alexis take care of the feed, and I'm going to focus right here with you so I can focus on our teaching for right now. We are leaving behind tonight the first phase of alchemy called calcination. And I'm going to recap calcination because is there anybody who's new tonight? I would really love to know. People are allowed to join Soul Shift at any point during the year. And sometimes they go back and they finish the early stuff later. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes because some people don't care about certificates, right? So they're not here for a certificate. They're here to learn and grow, and they don't care if they finish the whole thing or when they finish it, which that's kind of how I am too. So some people might be new. I want to welcome you in. I'm going to give you a little bit of a recap so that you kind of know where we're at today. Like, you know those maps that say you are here with a big X? I want to outline what here is so that you kind of know where you are in the grand scheme of things. Tiffany's new, Britt is new, so welcome in. And I think you're joining at a perfect time. Honestly, there's a little bit of a pause here. Not a big pause, but just a minor pause, right? So Mackenzie's new, Tony Ledesma is new. Welcome in, you guys. Desiree, this is her first Alchemize. Isn't this exciting? I love it. And is it Adonma 1 is new. Look at that. Congratulations. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So you're in a great place. I'm going to just give you a little bit of a scoop tonight to get you up to speed. And then if you want to go back and do January and February, you can. And that'll get you your certificates at the end of the year. Or you don't have to. You may find that you come in and this is right where you're meant to be and you don't want to go back and do the earlier work, which is totally okay too. Lizzie is new. Welcome to you. Sherry Herring is new. Look at that. I'm so happy. Danette, welcome in. Yeah, we're thrilled that you're here. So I'm gonna focus right now for the first, at least the first 45 minutes or an hour of our time together, and just again with some really juicy content. This is session 1, which is it's your learning class, right? It's your intellectual class. It's where we go through the worksheets, right? So every month you get worksheets that we design for you custom, because some people learn this way. I learn this way. I like to have a nice packet. I'm very old school. I went to college in the 90s, and I like worksheets, and I like things I can fill in and things that have pictures, and I like all of that. So I give you worksheets because some people learn that way. Now, some people never print out a damn worksheet and the whole time they're in the class. You know what? That's okay too. Some people are not here for the worksheets. Some people are here for the journeys. Some people are here for the community. Some people are here for, and you don't have to print out and fill out every worksheet to be successful in this program. Some people just like to hear me teach it. I'm going to be teaching you everything that's in here tonight. And so some people are more They learn by listening. They're more audio learners, and some people are more visual learners. So it's all how you learn, and I want you to take control of your learning that way and do what works for you, because everybody's going to learn at their own pace. I'm also going to say this really quick. You don't have to keep up, okay? This is not a race to the finish line. If you want your certificate, you got to finish all 12 months by December 31st, 2021. But some people take a month off and travel. Some people join in March and they catch up really in August, September. Some people join us in September and they do the whole thing between September and December. So I'm really open to different ways of learning, different ways of engaging. You might find that you don't want to do this part of the work right now. You're resisting it. Have you ever had that experience? It happens to me all the time. And for a while, I didn't know what it was, but I'm going to explain it to you now. I'm in my own classes, okay? I have 3 teachers right now. I usually have 2 to 4 teachers at any one time. And because I like to learn and I still consider myself a student, and I change my teachers every couple of years. I've been with these 3 teachers for the past about 3 years now. So, and I'm staying with them through the whole year this year, and probably into next year too, because we just have a lot of work left to do. But I take my own classes. I do it at my own pace. I never work with anybody who says, you have to do this assignment by this date at this time or you don't pass. Like I can't play that game because I'm busy. I've got 2 kids and I've got older parents and I've got employees and I've got a husband and I've got, I've got all the things. So I have to be able to do things on my own time. So I never take a class where somebody says, everything has to be done by this date. If you didn't check all these boxes, you don't finish. Like, I'm not in college anymore. At the same time, I do kind of teach this like a college class. I like to give you some intellectual stimulation, which is what tonight is. The way I'm teaching you tonight with session 1 is not any different than I would be teaching my graduate students when I was a PhD professor at the University of San Diego for 10 years, okay? I don't water this stuff down. You're basically in a university class on the content that I'm teaching you tonight, but there's no hard and fast deadlines for things, so you go at your own pace. If you miss a class, don't worry about it, watch it later. And if you're resisting something, don't push yourself to do it. Learn to trust your instincts. Do you know what I mean? When I'm really resisting something, I look at that and go, something in me doesn't want to do that right now. Is it because I'm not ready? Is it because it would be too much? Is it because there's something else I have to do before this that I haven't finished yet? I always ask those questions. And I just trust that whenever I get to it, it's going to be perfect. So please don't feel like you have to apologize. Somebody in the Facebook group today was talking about how I'm so behind and what do I do and stuff like that. You're right where you need to be. And if you're here tonight live, it's because you're supposed to have this content live. And if you're not, it's because you didn't need it live. And I really want you to learn to trust that process because that's your sovereignty, right? I know I'm supposed to be here doing this live with you right now, but that doesn't mean that everybody in this group is supposed to be here in this moment, right? So watch it later. Seriously. I mean, that is the benefit of being able to teach you this way. That's the benefit of you being able to learn this way. My bird is Joseph, and he's always quiet when we talk about him. I can do my drumming to him. He knows I'm talking about him and whatever. He's a very smart bird. I'm talking about you, Joseph. And there he goes. Joseph is an alchemist. Can I tell you what we're doing tonight? Okay. Here's what you need if you want to do what I'm doing tonight. And, don't get weird about this. Don't Martha Stewart this. This is only if you want to do it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't even have to be cute. Okay? You need a bottle. You got a bottle? I mean, go toss that pasta sauce. You know, that one you have in your fridge that you're not gonna finish it. I always have pasta sauce in my fridge, like old pasta sauce that I haven't used yet. Go dump that out and rinse out the jar and bring it back. I happen to have this bottle laying around, okay? So get a bottle. I think it's nice if the bottle is clear. Doesn't have to be clear, but dump something out of your fridge that you and I both know you're not going to use anymore. Get rid of that, okay? Glass is nice if you got it. If you want to use something else, you can, but glass would be preferred because we're going to mix some different stuff together. Yeah, dump out your wine. Come on now. You and I both know you got pasta sauce or wine or something in your fridge that you're not going to use. It's hard for me to admit it too, but I do. Because I have it too. I never throw a jar away. It's my dad really more than anything. If we ever went to throw a pasta jar away or like a butter container away or a mason jar away, he would freak out. Like, you can put stuff in there. Don't throw that away. You clean that, you will use it. So anyway, I take other people's jars. Like if I'm at people's houses and I'm in their recycling bin and they've got jars in there, I'm always like, I know this is weird, but can I like have your jars? I'll clean them. And they're always like, God, Athena, really? You're gonna like dig through my recycling and take my jars? And I'm like, I could put crystals in there. Can I have it? Go get your weird jars. Then we're gonna burn some stuff together, and we're gonna gather up some ashes, okay? And then if you were with me in Soul Shift last month and you made your perfume, your February perfume, grab that, because I'm going to add a little bit of that. If you weren't in Soul Shift in February, grab something. Grab a perfume that you love, or an essential oil blend that you have, or something that you made, some kind of perfume, okay? Baby food jar is awesome. Pickle jar is, baby food jar would be awesome, actually. I don't have babies anymore. And then when I had babies, they started transitioning to these plastic containers. I was like, what is this? Baby food jars should be glass. So, okay. There's no shame in my game either. Yeah, I'm going to recap it. Stay with me, Moni, because I got to talk about this first, and then we'll come back to the recap. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to make a potion to honor this this phase. Okay, nothing fancy. So what we're going to do is we're going to add our ashes to this jar, and I'll explain why in a minute when I get to the recap. Okay, we're going to put some ashes in the jar. We're going to add a little bit of our February perfume, or whatever you have that you want to add, and then we're going to hold on to this. Week 3, when we make our perfume for this month, I'm going to add some of that to this. Okay, and that will take us right to spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. It's going to take you guys in the southern hemisphere right to Lammas, right? So April, May, June, July, August, Mabon. So that's going to take you to Mabon, us to Lammas, or us to Ostara. And then what we're going to do is, after that, we're going to do an anointing ceremony with this to officially mark the turn of season. We'll do it during our gateway ceremony, okay? To officially mark the turn of season, and to officially mark the turn of the alchemical wheel from calcination to dissolution, which is what we're doing tonight. There are 7 phases of alchemy, but we have 12 months. And so some phases are going to last us 1 month, 2 months. This one lasted us 2 months. Now we're going to be in the stage of dissolution all the way through March and April. Yeah, anything you have would be great. Okay, and you're not making this for how it smells, you're making it for the medicine of it. So if it doesn't have to be beautiful, it doesn't have to be special, it doesn't have to be in a perfect container. And then what I'm going to do with mine, you choose what you're going to do with yours. Once we've worked with this and anointed with it, and I'll walk you through the anointing ceremony at our gateway ceremony together, I'm going to take this and offer it to my garden as an offering, because your perfumes that we make together are all pure essential oils. So it's not harmful to our planet to return them. They are the pure essences of the plants and flowers that we work with. So there's nothing synthetic or artificial, so you can feel really good when we're done with this and we've used it for our magical purposes, you can feel really good giving this back to the planet. Gold would be great to add to it. Yes, 1000%. Anything you've got. Oh, spice jars would be great. Yeah, you've got a spice jar that's old, don't you? I have an old paprika. I went to cook with it this past weekend, and I literally, it's so old I couldn't get the paprika out of it. You know, do you have spice jars like that? So I dumped all my paprika out, put new paprika in, and these are the things we do. You found your jar? Okay, good. So hold on to that. As soon as I'm done teaching you tonight, we're going to do this as our ceremony for the evening. So I just want to make sure you knew what to have so you could go and collect it if you wanted to. And I talked for a few extra minutes, which gave you a couple minutes to go get your weird pasta jar, or your baby food jar, or your spice jar. Right? Yeah, and then feed it to your trees and your flowers. Everything in nature is asking for fertilization right now, right? Everything's asking for food. When I go out to my garden, it's like every plant wants food and it wants water, right? Because it wants to grow. This is the season in the northern hemisphere of everything growing and blooming. So, yeah, well, I actually have my incense from February that I'm going to be adding to it as well. So if you have, because it's got the white sage and the palo santo and everything in it. So if you have your incense from last month, you can also add a little bit of that into this blend too, and that will help to move the energy. And then once your March incense comes, which will be again by week 3, then you can also add some of your March incense into this blend too. So you can keep adding. You can add other things. If there's crystals that are really meaningful to you that you want to offer up to this, if there's, I don't know, sprigs of herbs that you've grown, or dried flowers from last year from your garden, you know, that you're looking at and you're like, what am I going to do with that? It'd be really beautiful to add them to this too. Yeah. No, I don't think there's any bottle too small, Angela. I think you can use whatever, you know, whatever speaks to you. You'll know. And you may end up wanting to keep this. I'll tell you something, when we're done with this, it's going to be the best incense. So you don't have to donate it to your garden. You could actually just keep it and burn some charcoal and just use this as an incense too. And once we're done with tonight, especially with this next half hour of teaching I'm going to give you right now, you'll really understand why this is so important. Are you ready? Oh, I love that. Anna Maria is going to use some Valentine's Day roses that she dried. Doesn't get any better than that. Mm-hmm. Dried flowers, anything you have would be really beautiful for this. Mm-hmm. Okay, you ready? So now I'm going to focus back here, and Alexis, if you see any questions in the feed, please, you know, if you have a chance to answer them, that would be awesome. Okay. Now, before we get to your worksheets, I want to talk to you about where we are tonight. Where are we now? So in the alchemical wheel, those 7 stages take us from the process of absolutely breaking down, burning through, burning down everything about us that, at least for January and February, the work of January and February was called calcination. And calcination comes from the same root word as calcium, right, which means bone. The idea of calcination in alchemy is that we're going to burn everything down to the core components. You think about cremation, right? And how cremation is really the process of breaking the body down to its bones, to the most bare elements, right? So that nothing is wasted or lost. And so that's what calcination has been for us. It's the process of, in alchemy, and in alchemy, it's not so much a spiritual process. The original alchemy was really a physical process. So they would take what they called the prima materia, the prime matter, the original creation, right? The deepest part of who you are. And they would take that prima materia, and the first thing they would do would be to burn it, to set it on fire and see what it reduced down to. And the alchemists played with metals with this, right? Like, what would tin burn down to? What would lead burn down to? Because they were trying to create gold. Remember, that was the original focus of alchemy, was how do we take these not precious metals and transform them into something that is precious? And if you think about that, that's the work of life. How do we transform what is not precious within us, that we perceive as not precious, right? The reality is everything is precious within us. But how do we transform these aspects of ourselves that we perceive as not precious, not special, not worthwhile, not interesting, not beautiful? How do we take all of that and to a certain degree compost it, right? Mulch it, burn it down, see what it's actually made of, rebuild it, reconstitute it, reintegrate it so that it becomes something meaningful and worthwhile. So for the alchemists, this was metals, right? They wanted to see if they could turn tin into gold, lead into gold, right? For us, emotionally and spiritually, this could be, how do I take my heartbreak? How do I take my physical abuse? How do I take my my loss and my grief and find something in there that's beautiful, that's valuable, that actually is core and central to who I am and who I'm becoming and what I care about and what I bring forward in my life. And for a lot of people, this is bizarre. I mean, most people would say, wait, you're going to try and take that really shitty thing that happened to you, okay? And instead of forgetting about it or stuffing it or sucking it up or just staying bitter for the rest of your life, you're actually going to try and use it. Like, make it count, make it worthwhile, make it something that you can actually incorporate into the essence of who you are, so that you're not resisting it, denying it, ignoring it anymore, that you're actually saying, this happened and I'm better for it because it led me to A, B, and C, or it led me to X, Y, and Z. As an alchemist, I have spent the better part of my life doing this, taking what in my experience has been unreasonable pain and suffering and illness, and really figuring out how to make those things, to catalyze those things, to integrate those things into who I am, so that when I look back, I don't go, oh, but that's when I, broke up with that person, or, oh, that's when I was sick, and just like I don't talk about that, instead it all becomes part of my soup. It's all in the cauldron, right, of who I am. Different people will tell you different things, but as long as you work with me, what I'm going to tell you is I don't think there's anything that can ever happen to you as a human being that can't be alchemized into a source of inspiration, hope, and possibility for you as a human being. And I think that when you do that, it gives you a way to rise above. It really does. And I even think, I look at popular culture. I watched half of the interview with Harry and Meghan, for example. And I really watched that interview with some intensity of attention, okay? With a compassionate ear, by the way, too, and a compassionate eye, but also an all-knowing eye. And I asked myself, how can they alchemize this? And maybe they are, right? This looks different for everybody at every time and every place. How can they alchemize their experiences so that it becomes a source not of pain and not of sorrow and grief and trauma, but so that it becomes a source of growth and inspiration, right? I just give you that as a popular culture example, because when I watch popular culture events unfold, I always ask myself, what can we do to alchemize this? How can we take that and create something new? How can we take pain and transform it into its opposite? Now, what we know from the Hermetic principles, okay, and this is just a quick recap, honestly for everybody's benefit, because even if you were here from the very beginning, it probably doesn't hurt you to hear this again, okay? And I'll probably repeat it every quarter, okay, just so that you hear it one more time. Because I benefit when my teachers tell me things again. I'm always like, thank you for telling me that again, because I think I needed to hear it again. I'm always really grateful for that, so maybe you are too, right? And I don't have any opinion on Harry and Meghan, by the way. So we don't need to talk about that. I'm not even bringing it up to talk about it, because I'm of two minds about it, as I am with most things. I can see the benefit of what they're doing, and I can see the long-term challenges of what they're doing as well. And I'm sure they're making the right choice for them. But my point to you is, I think in every moment we have to ask ourselves, am I alchemizing? Am I alchemizing? And then, do you know what the secret is, you guys? The secret to it all. Because this is what I've learned over the last couple of years, especially the last 2 years. Ready for the real secret? Instant alchemy. Not waiting 10 years, 5 years, 30 years, 20 years, a year, a month, a week, an hour to alchemize it. When you're in the middle of your grief, okay? I lost someone I love a week ago. And I'm okay. I cried about it a little bit earlier today, but it comes and goes. My immediate question upon hearing of what happened to him was, I need to alchemize this. How can I do that? So that I can, at the same time, process what's happening to me right now and not get stuck. Right? Not have it go to a place where now it causes shoulder pain, or have it go to a place where now it causes a heart problem, or have it go to a place where now it's in my knee. You know what I mean? How can I alchemize this energy now so that I take this overwhelming wave of emotion and transform it into something useful? Now, that's not always possible, but for me, it's the goal. My goal is to be able to alchemize. And not so that I don't process things, but so I don't get stuck. And so I don't end up going 20 years later, 30 years later, 50 years later, right? And then you're tired. You don't want to alchemize it, right? It's like that the energy, the pain becomes just sort of part of the fabric of who you are. If you want to stay youthful, light, healthy, effervescent, buoyant, you know what I mean? If you want that, if that's your goal, you got to learn how to fast track this, because you'll start to recognize, like, ooh, the wave of energy comes, and then, oh, how am I going to ride that wave? And ooh, the wave of the energy comes, and oh, how am I going to ride that wave? And you almost become your own coach, to the point where you won't need it even for me to say this to you later. You'll say it to you, and then you'll be coaching and helping other people, like, okay, let's do this, right? But it's true, like Lisa Taylor's saying, the groove can get really deep. If you don't work on this, the grooves get deep, and when we get stuck in that groove, when you think about that person and then you rabbit hole, and it's like you can't get out, like it just starts to mire you down, and that's what happens to people. So the goal is you're learning this year in a kind of a straight line, right? We're going from calcination through dissolution and all the 7 stages, and it's going to take us the whole year to get through. But my goal is that after 2021, because we're not talking about alchemy next year, 2021 is the only year I'm going to teach this material. I've got other ideas for the future. So after this year, my goal is that you can then take that process and condense it. You know what I mean? So you're like, okay, I'm going to calcinate this, I'm going to burn through this, then I'm going to dissolve this, I'm going to break it down, I'm going to bring water into the process, right? I'm going to go through my anger, and then I'm going to bring my water, and then you'll know exactly how to do this, and you'll be the alchemist. You won't have, it'll become like muscle memory, where you don't even have to think about this. It's just going to be your automatic process that you go through. That's my goal for you, because and I'm teaching my kids this. I was talking to you guys during the readings today, if you were there, about we have these new house rules, which really aren't house rules. They're the way I want my children to live their lives as they become adults. And they're based on Buddhist teaching. And Buddhist teaching is, at the end of the day, you don't carry things. That anger from yesterday, you don't bring it into today. You just don't. You don't carry your emotions around. If somebody hurts you, you don't carry that into tomorrow. And that's how you stay light. You know, you're like the Fool in the major arcana of the tarot. And keep in mind, the dissolution phase of alchemy, which is what we're entering today, is represented by that Fool card in the major arcana of the tarot. Do you remember the Fool? I almost pulled it to show you, but you've seen it, right, in the major arcana in the Rider-Waite. He's carrying this little tiny knapsack over his shoulder. He could give 2 shits. I mean, he's like, what to do? He's not stressed. He's not worried. He's not pressured. And he's certainly not carrying around 84 grudges from 1999 when somebody hurt him. You know what I mean? He has alchemized, he has transmuted, and he's on a new path. And so he's not carrying around yesterday's pain, and he's not carrying around 10 years ago pain. And so the Fool teaches us how to just move with a little bit of lightness and ease. And I'll tell you something, if you commit to this, your body gets lighter, you lose weight, your muscles soften, your arthritis eases. I mean, there are real health benefits that come from not carrying your shit around all the time. And that is the work of this year. So if you want to know what I'm about, why you're here, what my expectation is for you, it's not that you become Teflon coated or you don't care, but you recognize the benefit of not holding it all the time. You know, like my teacher says, you're not Costco. You are not Costco, right? You don't have shelves. You're not meant to hold all your problems. You're not meant to hold my problems. You're not meant to hold your neighbor's problems. You're actually not meant to hold anything. You don't have shelves. You don't have pockets built in, right? There's not places to store stuff. Although we end up sticking stuff in our intestine and then we end up with diverticulitis, right? So your body does store stuff if you insist on it, but you're not meant to do that. It is indeed. Penelope said that so beautifully. I hope you don't mind if I quote you, Penelope. She said, forgiveness is a potent accelerator of alchemy. You may have to forgive somebody. Can you do that? Who hurt you? You're not a kangaroo. Thank you, Crystal Scarlet. It's true. You're not a kangaroo. Sorry. Did you think you were? If maybe that's your big breakthrough tonight is, you know what? Hashtag, I'm not a kangaroo. I'm not going to carry your stuff around. Sorry. You know what I mean? And there are so many humans who would love for you to carry their stuff around that you actually do have to defend that boundary. Because once people realize how light you are, they're going to be like, oh, he can carry my shit around too. And it's like, no, I got this way by letting my own stuff go. I'm not now going to be Costco for you. You know, I'm not going to stick your dry goods over here and your wet goods over here. I'm not doing that for you, right? That's not love. That's codependence when we do that for people. Okay, so in the last 2 months, what we've done is called calcination, which is we've been burning through some stuff, haven't we? In calcination, you got to burn down some stuff, and I'm very comfortable there because I'm all fire in my chart, right? So I love to burn. I love fires. I can throw shit in my fires. I like to build bigger fires, right? If you're all water in your chart or all air in your chart or earth in your chart, this last 2 months has probably been really scary for you. And I feel for you. For me, this is my comfort zone. So I love burning stuff down. Have any of you read my crucible paper? You don't have to, by the way. I offered it to you just to give you an example because when I was a professor, I would never assign a paper if I didn't write it first. And my students loved me for it because I never gave them an assignment unless I did it. And so when they came to me and said, this is hard, or I can't finish it, or I would always tell them, I totally get it. I just did it. I know how hard it is. I struggled with it too. And so it put us on kind of an even playing field because I didn't assign them to do something that I just had no idea how hard it was, right? So you don't have to read my paper, but it'll give you a little bit more insight into who I am because I'm all fire and I came from fire and I grew up with fire and I lost everything to fire and then I kind of gained everything back through fire and I'm hoping to inspire you to write your own paper about what your element is. But now you know why I love calcination so much because fire is home to me. Fire is kind of where I live. Alexis will, if you haven't seen it yet, Alexis will guide you in terms of where to find it because there's quite a few people, Alexis, who are saying they haven't seen the paper yet. And we've posted it for you, but Alexis will give you the exact link and location and everything so you can find it. And take your time. There's no rush to read it. And you don't have to write the paper. And if you want to write it, there's no deadline. So you have until December if you want to write your own crucible paper because I would love to read it. Yeah, so anyway, and by the way, I took 15 pages out of that paper because I couldn't imagine having you read all of that. The original paper had the story of my first love who chose drugs over me And so how I felt, how he had burned down, he was the only person in my life who I feel burned down something that I wanted to keep. And so that part of the story about all that pain and anguish of being in love with someone who had an addiction and stuff, I kind of left all that out because it's a whole other part of my narrative that, I don't need to take you through. Yeah, I took out 15 pages, but that was a pivotal relationship for me. It was a relationship that lasted from the time I was 14 years old until I was 22. So, in any case, yeah, one day if you ever want to read the whole version, but he chose drugs over me, and it was a terrible heartbreak, and by the time we both realized that was probably not the best thing to do, it was too late. And it's hard, but it teaches you a lot when you love someone who has an addiction. They oftentimes have to choose between that and you. And so I had to calcinate that, I had to put that somewhere in order to move forward and in order to create beauty in my life beyond my own despair and my heartache, right? So the goal of the Crucible paper is to figure out what your common thread is. My common thread is fire, right? And when you read my paper, you'll read that. And that thread runs through everything. It wasn't just what I gave you, but I think the whole paper was 29 pages or something long. I don't know, maybe 22. So anyway, I gave you the Cliff's Notes version of it. So in any case, if you decide you want to read that paper, you're welcome to. If you decide you want to write that paper, you're welcome to. So, but I wanted to give you that paper now because what is a crucible? A crucible is, in alchemy, it's the fire, right? Where you put into that fire where you have been and where you are now. And it transforms. That crucible changes the structure of all of those things and morphs it into something new and different and arguably more aligned with who you are and where you're going and what you're supposed to do, right? And so that was a crucible for me. I thought I was going to marry that person and have children with that person, and I wasn't. And so I had to put that in the crucible and see what emerged. And I'm so happy with the way my life turned out because I would never, now that I have my life, as it turned out, I would never choose another path. But at the time, I thought everything was falling apart, right? And I'm sure you've had your own moments where you thought you knew how your life was going to turn out, and all of a sudden, in an instant, everything was gone, right? And so if you've had those experiences, that's the crucible, is coming into a certain part of your life thinking that you know how it's going to go, you know who's going to be with you, you know how it's going to unfold, and then realizing it's not, right? And so you watch that fire going, what's it going to make? It's going to change this right into something completely different. And for me, it was radically different, and beautiful and sad and intended and perfect in its own way, and I think something that will reconcile itself, after this life is over. I have a feeling that I will understand it all a little bit better in a couple of decades from now. Okay, so in alchemy, they used iron oxide to progress from calcination, from the burning, to dissolution, which is literally the taking of the ashes and the purifying of the ashes. They used iron oxide for this phase. And and what's really sweet, and part of the reason I share some of these things with you, there's a big crow in the tree right now. Part of the reason I share some of these things with you that are really personal and not things that I share kind of with everybody else, is that I'm also asking you to be a little vulnerable. You know, I'm asking you to take a hard look at your life, and I'm asking you to reflect on your path, and I'm asking you to heal around the big things in your life, right? And so if I don't in turn give you like a really honest picture of my own heartache and process and challenges, then it's, you know, maybe it's not as easy to be vulnerable, which is why I've always committed to, you know, showing you my wounds in service of making it easier for you to show me yours too, so that we can do this work together. Yeah. Yeah, so when you tell me, oh my God, I've had my heart broken, me too. Oh my God, I've lost love, me too. Oh my God, I've lost jobs, me too. Oh my God, I've lost my health, me too. You know what I mean? Oh my God, I've lost everything to fire. Oh, me too. Like, I mean, and I don't like being able to necessarily empathize with you on that level. I wish those things hadn't happened, but they did happen, and they made me who I am today. And so hopefully that makes you feel safe saying that you've had some of those experiences too. Maybe you have. And if you haven't, bless you, because I would never wish those things on anyone, you know. I'm sure you feel like that about many parts of your life too. Okay. Now, I did want to say something about iron oxide. I have always felt, and thank you for that, by the way, Colin and Amber and Janine. I see you, and I'm grateful for you too. And you can always ask me things. Like I said, I didn't want to give you this like blood and guts paper, which is what the original version is, because it's just so detailed and candid, and you know, and like, it's too much. But I'm giving you the Cliff's Notes. But it's interesting to me that the original alchemists used iron oxide to get from calcination to dissolution, because there's this legend, okay, in ancient Lemuria, that golden healer quartz from Brazil, which is quartz with iron oxide, was actually the only mineral that was used in healing ceremonies. And for a long time I was like, is this some weird like metaphysical, because you know I'm a cynic, right? So I read some of this stuff and I'm like, are they just saying that because, I mean, we can't prove it, right? So I'm always cynical. But when I really started in earnest to study alchemy, and especially in the last couple of years, as I've had a teacher who's really solid in it, and especially this particular teacher is really as solid in the mechanics of alchemy. I think there's something to iron in quartz that is unique, and that actually could have real benefits for the kinds of work that we do. So if you see yourself attracted to particularly iron oxide in quartz, which would be like your golden healer quartz, for example, maybe pay attention to that, because I'm starting to think that iron is this really important inclusion for transformation, especially in healing, and that maybe the Lemurians did have sort of a key into this that we are not necessarily familiar with today, right? Yeah, and Alexis will guide you if you're having questions about how to submit your paper or hashtags and things like that. She will, and Alexis, if you can post, Alexis puts little pinned comments at the top, so she'll guide you in terms of like hashtags to use and how to make sure we can read it. Yeah, it's true, right? Equus 1b says, without iron in our blood, we die. It's true, right? I mean, iron is the conductor of, in so many ways, the life force. So doesn't it make sense that to transform from one state to another energetically, that iron might be the most important alchemical resource we have access to, one of them. Mercury, of course, is important too. So, yeah, the gold in azeztulite is also iron oxide. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? So anyway, I think there's something to it. I don't have any proof of that per se, you know, other than like me putting 2 and 2 together and getting 4, but I think there's something interesting about it. Yeah. Okay. So, so the calcination phase, the first phase of alchemy, is governed by Aries. And I love Aries. My sun's in Aries. My Mars is in Aries. Aries energy is great. It's the first sign of the zodiac.
wow, Aries is hard. Okay, I mean, Aries is just an ass kicker. How many of you are Aries, Sun, Moon, or Rising? Um, Aries, I love Aries, but I almost have to put a timer on Aries and be like, you got 30 seconds to be Aries right now. Ready, go. 29, 28, 27, 26. Because Aries is like fire starter, right? Aries is like, we're going to do it. We're going to do it now. We're going to do it today. But then if you try to push an Aries to do something before they're ready, what do? Oh, no, we can't do that. Oh, and it's just like, really? You'll kick my butt when it's your thing. But then when I'm like, all right, let's go, Aries is like, we can't do it yet because, right? I'm hip to the Aries game. So we came out of the gates all Aries this year, and meanwhile you guys are like, this is hard, oh my god, am I gonna make it, it's too much. And I'm thinking like, it's because it's Aries. It's kicking your darn keister from here to there, from the North Pole to the South Pole. Is gonna kick your butt. Okay, so that's what happened to us in January and February. March, I swear, my son will come downstairs and be like, and he's such an Aries, he'll be like, okay, we need to do this and that, and I need this for my, and I need this, can you please order this kind of paper for my math class, and I need it. And then later on I'll go like, okay, so can you take all the cans out of your bedroom and put them in the recycle bin, and then you can take all your dishes and blah blah blah. And he's like, I don't have time for that right now. And I'm just like, I don't have time to order your paper. Aries is not the only one with priorities. Okay, so now we're transitioning to Cancer. Aries to Cancer. Okay, how many of you are Cancers? Hematite quartz is different, red, because it's hematite, it's not iron. It's great, but I don't know that it's as involved in the alchemical process in this phase. So now we move to Cancer, right? Like Cancer energy is water energy. We move from fire to water. Cancer energy, Aries energy is all outward, right? Like go, move, do in the world, create, expand, blah, blah, blah. And Cancer energy is all reflective. It's inward. It's the crab, right? Pulling its energy back in and retreating to that inward landscape. So here we go, Cancer moon, Cancer rising, and then look at that. Catherine Park says Aries sun, Cancer moon. You are your own challenge, Catherine. You don't even need anybody to challenge. You know what I mean? It's like, okay. That's like my Leo sun with my Libra rising, right? I want to make everybody happy. I don't care if I make anybody happy. Yeah. Okay. Amphibole is a mixture of, amphibole is actually its own mineral, right, inclusion. But it's not iron based, although sometimes you'll see amphibole with iron inclusions in shaman dream cards from Brazil. Okay, so now we're not talking about Uranus yet, Christine. I'm giving you a recap of where we've been over the last 2 months and where we're going. So Uranus is kind of how we're talking about dissolution tonight, but we haven't gotten there yet. I'm basically backing up the truck a little bit to give you some context. So in the first 2 months, we were all Aries. Now we're going to be Cancer this month and next month. When we were doing calcination, we were working primarily with the root chakra. Am I safe? Do I belong? Who are these people? You know what I mean? Like, who are my ancestors? Where did I come from? Now we're moving to the sacral chakra. Okay, it's not about safety, belonging, ancestors now. As we move into the dissolution phase, it's about, who am I? Not compared to all the people out there. That's what we've been doing in January and February, right? Ancestors, friends, relatives, husbands, partners, children, whatever. Now it's, who am I in relationship to myself, my gifts, my higher self, my spirit guides, the whole inward community,
This is not an outward looking month now. We're taking all that external energy and we're pulling it inward. Does that make sense? So that's the shift from calcination to dissolution. Is now it's not about comparing yourself or looking at where you came from. The family tree stuff is behind us. We focused a lot on your physical lineage, on your spiritual lineage, right? Your star seed system of origin and all of those things. But now it's about who are you in relationship to you? Can you discern your own voice separate from your higher self? You're gonna feel maybe a little less frustration in the next 60 days with what we're learning, but you might find yourself still in a state of resistance, especially if you find flow difficult, if you find surrender difficult, if you find it difficult to just be with what is, instead of trying to fix it, change it, solve it. You know, this is not a speak your truth 60 days. We'll get there, right? We'll get more to the throat chakra later in the year. This is not that. This isn't even a very verbal stage. This is an inward, reflective, emotion-based, feeling into, softening into, flowing into, and the Cancers will have to guide us through this, right? Because they know how to do this better than, you know, I'm a great fire sign guide, so I'm better with calcination. So whereas we were burning through, breaking down, letting go, right, fire transforming as it burns through, now we are taking the ashes of everything that we burned through in January and February. And I'm going to light this sage to reflect that, because I'm going to create some good ash for our potion. So tonight we're going to burn one more time. I know, I feel the same way. I'm ready for water right now, honestly. I'm ready to feel a little bit more. And you know, consciously, because you know I always tell you, like, I do this work right alongside you. I am not one of those teachers who's like, oh, I've already done this. Good luck, everybody. No, I'm doing it right alongside you. I'm struggling alongside you. I'm crying alongside you. I'm resisting alongside you. I'm doing it right here in the cauldron with you. I have really been trying to soften, because this year's been really hard and it's pulled a lot of hardness out of me. Like, and what I mean by that is, like, down to business, get to work, no excuses, no complaining. I know it's hard, just keep going, 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 keep going. And I feel like I've been in kind of like warrior soldier mode, and my feminine has really withered as a result of that this year. So for me personally, what I'm hoping March is bringing, and it's my intention, especially with this really beautiful Pisces new moon that we have Friday night, which I hope you're excited about. It was like a big, beautiful, watery new moon too, is how can I soften, surrender, melt into, right? Do I have to keep trudging? Do I have to keep fighting? Does it have to be hard? Can I instead find some flow? Can I find some ease? Can I find some, a way to surrender and soften so that it's not so hard, right? Yeah. I don't want to be in warrior mode anymore. Because it's just, for me, it raises my cortisol levels, it results in adrenal fatigue, and I've been feeling all of that, you know what I mean? And there's physical symptoms of what we're talking about, right? And there's emotional symptoms, and there's energetic symptoms, and there's spiritual symptoms, right? Yeah, I know. I'm with you, Saya. Ease, flow, surrender. So if you have something to burn and you're going to make some ash with me, give it a good light here, and let's get some fire going. It's very important. It's okay, Stephanie. I love you. I wish I was there to rock her so that you could have a break. I watched this movie last night with Dave and the kids, and one of the characters, because my son, you know, is like 5'7" and 200 pounds, and my daughter's almost as tall as me, and her feet are bigger than mine, and I'm pretty much going to be the smallest person in my family very shortly. And I watched this show last night where the main character picked up his baby, and like a 2 or 3 year old, right, in the little footed pajamas, and picked the baby up out of the crib and like put the baby over his shoulder and was kind of like, just kind of snuggling him. And I could feel it, because I can't pick up my kids anymore. You know what I mean? So I was just like, I was watching it and I was all mushy. I was like, I can feel those little jammas and the little head and the crook of your neck and all those things. So before too long, all your girls will be too old for you to go and tend to them. They won't want you to. So enjoy. I sound like an older mom telling you that, but I would love to be able to, pick mine up and nestle them in the crook of my neck and take all their troubles away. Yeah, maybe I'll have grandbabies and I'll get to do that. I hope so. I hope so. I really do. I mean, I'd like to wait a really long time. I don't want grandkids right now, but when the time comes, I will so love carrying them around. Okay. So while I'm cooking up my ash here, I'm going to keep talking to you. So dissolution is the process now, right, of taking all of the stuff that you burned in January and February, all of the sadness and the sorrow and the trauma and the whatever it was for you, abuse and grief and mistreatment and being ignored or overlooked or forgotten or disavowed or whatever it was for you, that you were really trudging through, right? And purifying it now. It's about sorting and sifting and cleansing now. This is a cleansing month for you. And if you think about it, March, especially in the northern hemisphere, is a season of renewal. We're coming up on spring, right? So everything is cleansing. We just had rain today. In fact, the sun just came out. It was pouring rain for most of the day in LA today. And it's just such a cleansing and a renewing and a purifying. I love watching it. I love feeling it. I love the smell afterward, that petrichor smell of just the heaviness, the thickness in the air, and just feeling these trees, like just drinking it in and seeing the new leaves. Every time there's rain, right, the new leaves on all of our trees just seem to grow overnight because they just get all the nutrients and everything that they need, right? So this is a beautiful stage, and one not to rush through. I understand the desire to rush through calcination because it kind of sucks. Dissolution is not to be rushed through. This is a great stage, and it's kind of like bathing in everything that you have come through and really starting to make your own choices about what to carry forward and what to leave behind. So it's a really beautiful stage. It's one that I hope that you really enjoy. Okay, so the water in this stage begins the purification process, not unlike that first big rain of the season. And the key word in Latin for dissolution is interiora, which is spelled interior with an A on the end. Interiora, which again is the process of going within. And I led you through that journey too, where I talked about how all of our ancestors have said, if you want to heal, you have to go within. You don't go without, right? I made a meme for this in social media last week that said, don't look for the way out. You have to look for the way in. There is no way out of this, right? I mean, there is a way out of being human, right? One can take one's own life, but that doesn't get you out of the work. So it's actually a false option, because you still are stuck in that cycle of samsara, of living and dying and creating and destroying and all of that. Those cycles don't end. So it's a falsehood to say that there's a way out. The way out is actually through and in, and looking at what are my resources, what are my options, and how do I begin to perceive this life differently? Not as a victim of it or somebody who's subject to it, but someone who actually has agency, who can, through my desire and my intention and my passion and my willingness to show up, can actually shift and transform the outcome of events, right, with intention. I think that's that is the goal of this month, is to get you back into pole position, right? Where you realize you have the agency, you have the power, you have the knowledge that you need to transform. And the hardest part of this work, believe it or not, is now behind us. The hardest part of alchemy is calcination. So that's why I'm ready to let it go, and you probably are too. And if you did the work of it, you're going to benefit from that work for the whole year. And if you haven't done the work yet, you may want to go back just to do January or February. You don't have to do every month if you don't want to, but maybe just do one of the months and see what comes up, especially January with the family tree process. Could be a really rich arena for you to explore for this part of the work that we're doing. Okay, this stage that we're moving into tonight with dissolution, and then we're going to move on to Uranus in just a minute, is the journey to the unconscious realm. This is the real shadow work of our year, is this month. Because it's, for me, the shadow is in the deep water. For me, the shadow is what is in the cauldron, right? It's buried beneath. It's flowing under everything else that's happening. So you've burned through a lot, but now you're going to have to really pour water on those ashes and start to sift through it. What's actually here? And you're going to discover some new stuff. Even now, in March and in April, you're going to discover new things about yourself or your process that still need to be cleared and purified and cleansed. And so the purification process continues through March and April. Yeah. What if you don't feel like you're out of calcination? Probably because you're not. I mean, technically we're moving out of that phase, but the purification continues, Stephanie. The difference between February and March in Soulship this year is the element. We're no longer needing to burn through. Now we have to cleanse, right? So you probably did burn through as much as you need to for this year. Probably you did. Now the process is, how do we make sense of where we've been? How do we actually take a look at what we have accurately? And so the washing through of the ash allows you to really see what's sitting in your hands. And it's true, Tanya says it's not a linear process, and I can assure you she's right. You might find that you circle back to calcination and then progress to dissolution again, and then back to calcination and then you progress into dissolution again, and that's okay. Again, Western society teaches us we go from A to B to C to D, and then we graduate. Magic and everything non-Western teaches us you go from A to B, back to A to D, back to B to F, sometimes back to A, and then you end up at Z somehow. But it's an iterative process. It's a repetitive process sometimes rather than a linear process. It's more cyclical. It's more feminine. The linear is very masculine, but spiritual development doesn't happen in a linear masculine way. It happens in this cyclical, iterative way where we cycle back on old ideas and we see them from a new perspective. Yeah, it's very true. So, and that's why, and people get frustrated, right? Because shamanism is like that, right? Shamanism is actually the process of teaching you the same thing over and over and over again to prove to you that you have different eyes, right? If I was to go back to that first relationship of my life now, how differently I would carry myself, right? But I was 14. So you can't compare it, and yet you can, because it's still me, it's still my essence, right? But how I would carry myself in a relationship like that today is very different than I carried myself then. And sometimes there's benefits to going back and reflecting on those experiences so that you can see how far you've come. If you don't revisit your past, you never really get to have the satisfaction of seeing your progress. Like, how differently would you show up to that moment now? And isn't it fun to think about? It's fun to think about it, especially if you can really see your progress. It's very fulfilling too. Okay. In historical terms, by the way, the best analogy for dissolution is the Great Flood. Woo! So I'm not suggesting that we're entering a great flood, but what I am saying is that was a divine way of purifying our planet, wasn't it? Like let's just put it all underwater. We'll give Noah 2 of everything just in case this doesn't go to plan. Hurry up, Noah. Okay, you got 2 of everything. Okay, right, and then all the water came through. And what's interesting is the Great Flood, as an analogy, shows up in the texts of Lemuria, in the texts of Atlantis, in the texts of Great Egypt, right, where the Nile would flood every year, and that was the sign of prosperity. In the Bible, obviously, in the form of the Great Flood that we all associate with the Judeo-Christian tradition. And so almost every spiritual tradition has this idea of the flooding of waters as a great cleansing and purifying. So that's kind of the historical analog or the historical metaphor that aligns to the stage that we're moving into now. Okay, so what I want to do with you now is make our potion. So I have quite a nice little, I buried all my ash last week with you, remember? So I'm kind of starting from scratch, but it's okay. I've got enough here. This is my little ash collection for today. And don't be afraid of your ash. Ash is very sacred. A little bit on your third eye, which represents your connection to the plant world, right? And your receiving of plant medicine as wisdom. So it's not something to be avoided or to be, and certainly not something to be thrown out. So I'm going to take my bottle if you want to do this with me. And I don't have a caustic right here, do I? No, that's right. I'm going to take a white sage leaf and do it that way. Yeah, you can totally burn on top of old ash. There's no rules for this. Just follow your intuition, you know what I mean? However you do it, it's going to be exactly what needs to be done. Okay. Oh, I love that. Ciara said in Judaism, it's the Tanakh, the Great Flood. Yeah. And isn't it true Hawaii is having intense flooding right now, which is dangerous because of drought conditions, right? Isn't that interesting? Okay, so in the bottle it goes. Can you see the smoke? It's actually really beautiful. Can you see it? It's not coming through the screen. I did it again one more time. It's actually so beautiful to see smoke inside of a bottle. Little leaf. Can you see it? You can kind of see it there. It's beautiful. So that's how you cleanse and prepare a bottle. Get all that beautiful smoke in there. Oh, it smells good. I love fire so much. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a little bit of the incense from last month, the self incense. I don't have a funnel, so I'm going to use my hand as a funnel. Just over the top of the bottle like that. Extra goes in my pants. It's okay, Stephanie. We had mentioned it in our Facebook group earlier, and I mentioned it at the beginning of tonight, but if you missed it, don't worry about it. You can always go back and do this step later. This was just something that came to me today as I was preparing class this morning, and so, but it's not something that we have prepped, and there are no specific supplies for it, so it's just whatever you feel called to. So I'm going to take this ash from my little tray, and I'm just using the bottle I have. It's just a clear glass bottle. I'm just going to place the ash inside. I'm going to do 3 pinches of ash. Feels good for past, present, and future. Again, don't be afraid to get it into your skin. It smells good. Yeah. Okay. So I've got a good mix of some sacred herbs in there and some ash and all the things. Yeah, you can do it anytime. You don't have to do it tonight. It's not like there's some special occasion. In fact, if you wanted to wait till Friday, it'd be really cool. You could do this at the new moon. Okay, so my perfume from February, I'm just putting a little bit in, not too much. I don't want to use too much because I love this perfume. I've been wearing it every day. But I do want to get enough in there to kind of coat the bottom. And I'm just rolling it around a little bit. So this is it's gonna be a little soupy. I mean, you're mixing dried herbs with oils. It's gonna make a little bit of a soupy, slushy, magical smelling. Oh, it's so good. I'm gonna put a touch of my gold in there too. I'm gonna do that too, just because I want it to have the energy of all the tools that we've been working with. Okay. And you can put a crystal in there. You can do anything you want with what's in there. So this was our perfume from February, but if you have any of your Soul Shift perfumes, if you have a perfume that you love that isn't even from class, that's okay too. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cap this off. If you want to really super juice it, I'm going to do it. I hope it doesn't gross you out. You can put your spit in there. Life force. It always supercharges. Some people get super grossed out by using body fluids in ceremony, but it's pretty common. You know, saliva, blood, menstrual blood, vaginal fluid, people do it. Saliva is my favorite and breath is my favorite because it's not offensive to people. A lot of Westerners are like, you did what? You put what in what? So I'm a little more timid in my public offerings with what I do, but I do often use blood. I've used menstrual blood in ceremonies before because those are sort of more potent forms of life force, right? But anyway, that's looking real good to me. So what I'm going to do, it doesn't look pretty, but it's magic. So what I'm going to do is week 3, when we blend our perfume for this month, I'm going to add that into here. And then I'm going to, you can use hair too for sure. I'm going to put this on a charcoal disc and burn it. So this is going to stay here as a sacrament for that ceremony. And you can do the same thing. You can start using it now. You don't have to wait until you have your week 3. You can kind of do this in any way that you want. Earwax, I don't know. Haven't heard of that. But it doesn't mean you can't. It's still unique to you. I think the main thing is it has to have DNA. So if your earwax has DNA, then sure, I can be into it. I'm not afraid of body fluids or body noises, but that's having practiced magic for a really long time. If you do enough of this work, you're going to see everybody's body fluids. You're going to hear and smell and see everybody's body sounds, and so you kind of have to get over a little bit of that at a certain point. Yeah, so as long as it has your DNA, it's considered what we call an object link. Yeah. It has to have the DNA. Okay. Any questions about that? That was just a quick little bit of magic. Not anything planned and certainly not anything required. So, but it's a nice way, and I'll tell you why we're doing it, because we're moving from fire to water. And so what I just did in this bottle with you is the exact process of dissolution. I took the ashes from the past, I added liquid to them, water in a way, the most powerful water I can produce, which is my saliva, and the precious oils that we've incorporated, And this is the beginning of the process of dissolution in a very physical form that you can use as an incense or give as an offering in your garden. And it gives you a way to really understand alchemy in a physical way beyond the energetic work that we do. I love it. Fabienne used gold, Ganesha, and spit. Yeah, fingernail clippings work. That's why they always tell you not to give old witches your fingernails. You might end up in somebody's spell. And so my intention in creating that, I'm sure your intention is exactly perfect for you. My intention is to give myself a tool to honor and to acknowledge and to represent this transition of phase from the burning to the cleansing, from the fire to the water, from the root to the sacral, from surviving to thriving and creating and growing, right? So that's where we're moving. Can there be too many ingredients? I don't think so. This isn't the kind of thing you can mess up. There may not be enough ingredients in mine. I may end up adding some water. I also have some honey from Valco that I think I might put in here. From his, Valco's a beekeeper, and he sent me some honey. So I might add some of Valco's honey in here, and I might add I have some really nice mountain spring water downstairs with some quartz in it that I drink from, so I might add some of that in there too. Yeah, Boom Shiva and spit sounds real good to me. I love it. Yeah, I mean this is very earthy magic, but it's very important too. Rainwater is beautiful too. I did collect some of this rainwater, because we don't get a lot of rain here in Southern California, so it's super sacred. And I did collect some outside in a little I don't even know what you would call it, but it's like a little funnel that I have outside on one of my plant stakes. So I might put some of the rainwater from this last rain, which would be so cleansing and purifying. It's another thing to consider doing too. Moon water for sure. Moon water for sure would be good. Mm-hmm. Your honey from October, which I still have my honey too, Brittany James, so you can put that honey in there. Yeah, it sure is. It's super magic. Okay. So that is going to stay with me. I'm going to probably work on it a little bit between now and then. Check that out. Is it just me, or is that cool? I mean, we could read that. We could divine that, couldn't we? There's some markings and some. I see a dragon in there. I see all kinds of cool things in there. So if you're doing this alongside me, especially if you have a larger bottle, like I wonder if there's some divination that we could do. I mean, not right now tonight, but another time. And hydro water would be great, and I have a little vial of that in my closet. So you might see my bottle grow over the next couple of days, just as I add in some other stuff. Yeah, it's a trip, isn't it? It's really, really cool. So have fun with yours. Again, this is optional. You don't have to do it. If you want to do it later, you can. You're going to see mine, though, resurface at week 3 before our journey, which is when I will finish it. Yeah. Pretty neat, right? Okay. So let's talk about Uranus now. I want to dive into your worksheets. These are the worksheets that we're going through. And these worksheets are in your classroom page. So if you're new, on the first of every month, we give you usually about 10 pages of worksheets. By the end of the year, we'll have given you a big old binder full of worksheets. And like I said, that's because a lot of students, this is their favorite way to learn is actually through worksheets and written text, and I respect that, so we give you a lot of fodder, right? So if you want to complete your worksheets, you can. If you want to just go through them with me here, you can do that too. Mm-hmm. I'm so happy for you guys. I'm glad that you're here. Okay, so this month, as it says in your worksheets, we move on to the second alchemical stage, which is dissolution, second of the 7th. We will go through all 7 of those stages in 2021. We're still kind of at the beginning, although we've passed the first stage, which is calcination. And alchemy, as you remember, is the process of rebirth, right? So this is the process of taking things back to their root, to their origin and their source. And it allows you to be reborn. Every time you practice alchemy, you go through a rebirth. You really do. And that's why I think if you decide to write that crucible paper, it's really cool, because that crucible paper is about you being reborn, but also looking for what what patterns have emerged. Every time you've been reborn, there's probably something similar about that process that you should take a look at, right? Yeah. So now we're gathering the ashes of the first phase, dissolving them in water, which produces iron oxide. We talked about this earlier. And the theme of immersion here is led by Sun Sign Cancer, which is the sign of bliss, flow, creativity, expansion. Cancer is also the sign of compassion and forgiveness, even though cancers sometimes have trouble forgiving people. That is one of their gifts when they are evolved. And this is our process of regaining our strength after being broken down deeply during the calcination phase. Now that we know who we are, where we came from, and what we've always been, the most timeless aspects of ourselves are what we focused on in January and February, we can more effortlessly and fearlessly explore our goals and our creative endeavors without fear. And that is the goal of alchemy. So this is coming to us, this work, this month is coming to us at the height of spring when most of nature is preparing to give birth to new life, right? Aw, I'm so glad you guys are here. Thank you for being here. We're diving deep into the waters of the unconscious, exploring inner desires, also looking at inner fears. We're all human, and sometimes to survive, we plow ahead and push down and get through. But then at some point, we realize that wholeness is our goal. I have to tell you, that is so true for me. I spent so many years of my life just saying, if I can just get through this, if I can just get through this week, if I can just get through this month, if I can just get through this year. Until I realized you can't live like that. Because meanwhile, your life is happening, right? Like, this isn't the rehearsal. What are you just getting through? I mean, whatever you're getting through is actually why you're here, right? So I remember that being a big aha moment for me, like, wait, I can't just get through this. If I keep doing this, that's how I'm going to end up living my whole life, and that's not living, in my opinion, right? Okay, so so this is where we forge a union between what we have always wanted to be and who we are, so that we're not saying, if I can just get through this, if I can just get through next week, right? It's a great question from Jessica Hicks, and I'm going to answer it more generally, Jessica, because it applies to anything retrograde when you were born. Any planet that was retrograde when you were born, whether it's Uranus or Mercury or Venus, what it means, it highlights that for you. It means you need to double down there and really focus. That's an area of strength or challenge for you. And so if you were born during a retrograde phase of any planet, that planet has particular relevance for you. So if you were born during Uranus retrograde, tonight's a double click for you. Like, you have to do this work, as opposed to somebody who, like, I was not born during Uranus retrograde, so I love doing this work, but it isn't something that I have to double down on because it's so relevant to who I am. You know what I mean? Okay. So sacral chakra takes over here, and this is a juicy phase full of flow and expansion, but like the Great Flood, this phase reminds us that water can either purify or destroy. Take this phase easy, right? When you are floating on the ocean, which I love to do when we travel and go on vacation, I love to float in the ocean and just kind of relax. The water is one way, right? When you are struggling in the water, when you're drowning in the water can be a force of destruction too. So don't take it easy through this phase. When you find yourself struggling, if you find yourself struggling, remember to lay back and float. Remember, I taught you this, right? When you lean back, like physically, take a moment wherever you are sitting and lean back. When you lean back versus leaning forward, energy actually is able to flow through your central channel. It instantly eases the energetic load on your central nervous system. If you are ever stressed out, you need to stop whatever you're doing, take a deep breath, and lean back. Because when we lean forward, which is what we tend to do when we're trying to focus or pay attention or get really serious, we actually constrict that Sushumna, or central channel, and we prevent energy from flowing. So always remember, this whole phase is about, like, okay, I'm going to lean back, I'm going to rest in that river of love, I'm going to trust the process. I'm not going to be in here trying to control everything, micromanage everything. if you haven't learned this by now, I have learned it. Let me put it that way. I have learned I don't know how to fix everything. And oftentimes when I try to fix everything, I screw it up worse. And I wish I had just not even done that. I have really learned in my life to relax, let go, and float. Because when I try to fix, change, push, you go over there, that happens here, I'm going to tell you what to do, all those things. When I micromanage things, I tend to make a mess. So as soon as I take my hands off and trust people to do their work, everything flows a little bit more smoothly, and that's part of the learning of this phase too. Okay. When we lean back, we learn to float, to be easy and effortless, to allow it to be, to trust and surrender. Okay. Maria, if you do a good natal chart, and particularly if you have a good consultation with an astrologer, they can help you to understand what planets were retrograde when you were born. And I highly recommend it. It's worthwhile to have a good astrologer do a full analysis of your chart. It's going to cost you between $150 and $300. For most good astrologers are going to be in that range. But for that, you'll usually get an hour or two of really good in-depth wisdom and information, and it can be extremely helpful. So something for you to consider too. But we're going to get you a little bit of the way in tonight, talking about Uranus and what it is in your chart. So Uranus, some people pronounce it Uranus. Pretty much nobody says Uranus, which is good because I don't know why you'd want to say that, unless you're a teenager, and that's funny. But I've never really heard anybody call it Uranus. It's Uranus or Uranus. So just FYI, you know what I mean? Yeah. So Uranus is a planet of freedom, innovation, authenticity. It's sort of the counterpoint to Saturn, right? So Saturn is the taskmaster. You need to do this. You didn't do this right. Here's the rules. You broke the rules. Like Saturn is the taskmaster parent. And Uranus is the counterpoint to Saturn. Uranus is like, Saturn, you're too bossy. I don't want to, I'm here to be free, and I'm here to learn self-expression and authenticity and innovation. Like Uranus is party town, and Saturn is the really overbearing father. So that's kind of how I think about these two planets. Do they say Uranus in Australia? I won't judge you, but it's funny. I mean, I won't judge you in the moment, but afterward I'll just go quietly and kind of laugh to myself, like, she said anus. So we won't be able to get into the nitty-gritty of astrology tonight, just for time purposes. So I'll get you pretty far, and then, like I said, if you want to do a much deeper dive, that's probably a hint that astrology is your jam. I love it too. It's just it's literally a lifetime, and would take hours and hours and hours of time we don't have tonight. But I'm going to get you pretty far tonight, and then you can carry on at your own level of interest beyond that. Okay, so Uranus breaks up the lead of Saturn, so we can expand into new areas of thinking. Back to ground zero, it's the Fool and the major arcana of the tarot, which I mentioned to you before, right? Okay, so on page 3, it says your Uranus, right? Each house in the zodiac is associated with a sign. So tonight we're looking at the sign and the house of your Uranus placement. My Uranus is in Libra, and that's based on when you were born. Uranus transits the signs every 8 years, which is pretty crazy, isn't it? So it takes a long time to make its full rotation around the sun. So hopefully you took a moment to go through and figure out. I can tell you right now, if you were born between 1948 and 1956, your Uranus is in Cancer, 48 to 56. I didn't do before 48, but obviously Gemini would be the one right before this, which includes both my mom and my dad. And then 55 to 62, Uranus is in Leo. 62 to 69, Uranus is in Virgo. 68 to 75, Uranus is in Libra, right? 75 to 81, Uranus is in Scorpio. 81 to 88, Uranus is in Sag. 88 to 96, Uranus is in Capricorn. 95 to 2003, Uranus is in Aquarius. And then 2003 to 2010, which includes both of my kids, Uranus is in Pisces. Which is interesting, right? And then where it is in your chart depends on, just the placement of everything at the time of your birth. So your house and your sign can be different. Mine are. My Uranus is in Libra, but it's in the 12th house. Is that helpful? Do you guys have a sense of your placement and where it is? Yeah, so if you're my age-ish, right, you're going to be Libra. If you are older than me, slightly, you're going to be Virgo or Leo. If you're younger than me, slightly, you're going to be Scorpio or Sag, or maybe even Capricorn. I don't think there's anybody in this group who was born after. Well, we could have someone from after 2000. So we could have Aquarius, but we tend to have adults in this group. So I don't think anybody in here is Pisces. My kids are old enough to access this class, but not old enough to register for it or pay for it. So I think we're safe. Yeah, and if you, I answered the question earlier about retrogrades, so you can always go back and listen to the replay. I don't want to repeat too much because we have so much to get through in the remaining time, but I did mention that earlier if you'd like to go back. So first house Aries, these are your keys to liberation, right? What sets you free? And again, we're thinking about Uranus because Uranus, we're leaving behind calcination. We're leaving behind the hardest part of this work, which is what are the rules? Who am I? Where did I come from? What are my origins? What's my origin story? Right now we're moving beyond that too. Okay, so what sets me free? What liberates me? Now that I've figured out who I am and who you are and how we're similar and how we're different, how do I become liberated so that I can move through these next phases of alchemy, so that I can really understand what's mine and what's not mine and how to bring my gifts forward in the world. April is going to be entirely about how do we figure out how to bring your gifts forward based on who you are, where you came from, and what sets you free. And so April is going to be a real month of magic here in Soul Shift. There's going to be a before April and an after April. April and May. Okay? Because April and May are the kind of the final steps of this first completion where you say, okay, I really know who I am now. But now I got to figure out what I need to do. Because you're here for a purpose. And if you're not living that purpose right now, what are you doing? And I think a lot of us have figured out in the last 2 years, like, you don't have all the time in the world, right? So let's figure out who you are, separate from me, separate from your family, separate from your partner, separate from your kids, separate from your whoever else. Then let's figure out the difference between your voice and your higher self's voice, which is going to be this month. And then let's figure out what your soul gifts are, and then let's figure out how to bring those to the world in a good way. So by the end of the year, you're going to be like, this is why I'm here, this is who I am, and this is what I do. And this is who needs what I do, and now I'm going to bring that to them, and you're going to find that that creates its own shift. And that's a little bit different than our focus last year. Our focus last year was on your leadership, internal, right? Priestessing, how do I show up, how do I hold space? This year, it's a little bit beyond that. What do I have that could be useful right now? And how do I bring that forward in a good way? Not a codependent way, right? Because we're getting rid of all of that. We're burning through that codependence and that victimhood and all of that so that you show up as a full and evolved human being and the world can benefit from what you know and what you do. Okay, so if you're in the first house, which is the house of the self, remember we've talked about the different houses in astrology. The houses in astrology, just so you know, pardon my not great notes. I always say this, but I'm not an artist. The houses in astrology go counter, well, technically they go counterclockwise, right? So from the first house is the house of self, second is the house of money and work. These are the houses. It's cut up like a pie, your chart, right? Then it's communication, home, romance and love, health. This is relationships and marriage, sex and intimacy. Then to travel, public service and career, groups and friendships. And then the 12th house is the house of spirit, magic, transformation, right? So I'm Libra 12th house. You have to figure out your placement, and then you have your your information. First house Aries, your key of liberation is letting go of old ideas. You need to burn in service of what is true. How strong you need to be, how you're supposed to show up, letting go of any past trauma about war or warfare or being a warrior could be part of your liberation. Like maybe you don't have to work so hard or battle so hard or push through so much. Aries first house. Taking the lead. You need freedom to stand up for yourself, to go for what you want, to be there for yourself, and to show up for yourself as an ally, right? Yeah, I can. Or I can get a better graphic of the house chart and put it in the group too. My little shitty drawing is probably not great for you, but I'll find a better version of that and I'll post that for you. So if your Uranus is in the first house or in Aries, Panther is your spirit animal, and then red jasper and dragonstone are your stones. And if you go to Sage, if you want these stones, by the way, sagegoddess.com/Uranus is a whole page of just all of these stones. If you're like, oh, I have red jasper, but I don't have dragonstone. We didn't do pairs of these. We just linked to the individual stones because a lot of you have one, but you don't have the other, in case you want your Uranus stones. And you'll find those at sagegoddess.com. So not right now, but later if you want them. And Alexis will post the link for that for you. And then your code is 19MAGIC if you want to get any of those crystals. Second house Taurus, your key to liberation is letting go of attachments to what you think keeps you secure, especially around physical space or money. It's an interesting one with Taurus, right? You may carry past life trauma from times when survival was difficult. You didn't have enough food, you didn't have enough money, you didn't have nice things. And so you need the freedom to really love yourself and to create beauty around you, and also to create financial stability for yourself and your loved ones. And so elk is your animal, which is nobility, strength. Elk always reminds me of Taurus people, because elk is just this big, slow-moving, but really elegant and beautiful creature. You know, kind of takes your breath away. And Taurus people do that for me, because I think of Taurus as sort of like the truest artists of the zodiac. And they paint in every palette. You know, they're makeup artists, they're clothing designers, they're interior designers. Like Taurus takes their art in all these really interesting directions. But if your Uranus is in Taurus, what that tells you is you may not always have had access to beauty or access to resources. And so now you're kind of healing that, which is interesting. So elk, and then bronzite and citrine, which is of course the prosperity. You know, you're releasing and letting go and then attracting wealth. Third house Gemini, your key to liberation is letting go of how you used to see your life. Interesting, right? Yep. Maybe you were given bad information. Maybe you had trauma around communication, because remember Gemini governs that, and the third house is the house of communication and Mercury. Maybe you didn't feel like you had the right words at the right time, and that's been really staying with you. So you need to be able to think for yourself, write your own story, explore new ideas, learn in your own way. That's Uranus in the third house with Gemini. And so on page 5, your liberation ally is the lizard. And your stones are amazonite, of course, for Gemini, right? Because you need to be able to liberate that throat chakra. And then chrysocolla, also a throat chakra stone, but really feminine. And chrysocolla creates communications that develop collaboration and also diplomacy. So that could also be something where you need to learn to express yourself, but in a way that people will understand. And so that's another good stone ally for you. Fourth house Cancer Uranus, your key to liberation is letting go of your old emotional needs and patterns and too much attachment to parental conditioning. People with Uranus Cancer, how many of you are here, may have grown up in really overbearing households, right? Where parents were telling you what to do, what to think, how to behave, how to dress, everything. You'll see some of those patterns coming up around Uranus Cancer. And so you're the swallow, right? Perspective, objectivity, that not everything is as it appears, or that we don't have to live up to an appearance too. which is also some of the medicine of this. Interesting, right? Honey calcite heals the parental relationship. Blue calcite's good too. Kunzite's another great crystal for Uranus Cancer, because again, you need to almost reimagine what family means, so that it's not a dysfunctional relationship. And then in the 4th house, right? And that's why you want to have all of your, you want to be looking not just at the sign, but also at the house. Now, if your Uranus in Cancer is in the 4th house, which is ruled by Cancer, you only have to look in one place for your profile. If your Uranus is in, I'm going to turn down the lights so I'm not so you can see me better. If your Uranus is in one sign but a different house, you got to look at both sections. Like mine is in Libra, but it's in the 12th house, which is ruled by Pisces. So I have to look both at 12th house and at Libra in order to get my full picture of my Uranus. Does that make sense? So, but these stones are all about nurturing, healing those relationships, harmonizing those relationships, alchemizing those relationships so that they're more functional. Aragonite's nice too. I like that. And like I said, there's quite a few stones that you could work with there, but I think anything around harmonizing the home and family and relationships, so kunzite, spodumene would be helpful. 5th house, Leo, right? And the 5th house is also romance and love. So your key to liberation is to let go of the need for attention. That's Leo. And any rules around who, what, or how you love. You don't want to be told who to love, how to love. These could be people who found themselves in arranged marriages, in past lives, which I've seen so many times. I really have. Or people who feel like they're in a relationship because of duty, like I have to be here, I have to do this thing, I have to love this person, right? You don't want any of that. You need freedom to enjoy yourself, to follow your own heart wisdom, and to put things out there with your own stamp on them, your own style, your own fingerprint. So skunk is your animal for confidence, sexuality, sensuality, and then orange calcite and peach aventurine, which are going to teach you to tune into your own desires and to manifest your own desires. Orange selenite would be another nice one there. What about being a Taurus and having Uranus camping out in the sign until 2027? Well, there's that. It's true. Actually, my records show that Uranus is in Taurus until 2028. Sorry, Lorian. But Uranus in Taurus is good because it's teaching us to think differently about beauty and about creativity and about authenticity and about sovereignty and power and money. Like, I mean, you can even see it in society, right? Like how we're having to redefine our relationships to prosperity and to wealth through this pandemic and government subsidies and all. I mean, we're really reimagining all of that right now. Yeah, it's a fascinating process. 6th house Virgo, your key to liberation is letting go of the need to get it right, to control everything and everyone. You might have trauma around having to be of service. Maybe you don't want to help people this time. You're like, I helped people the last time, right? I don't want to do that anymore. Maybe you were stuck helping people. Maybe you got things wrong and you weren't able to fix them or heal them. And so you want freedom to do work your own way, to set your own schedule, and to figure out what type of work suits you best. Work environment too in this one for 6th house and Virgo. And so Turtle is your guide there, awakening to new opportunities, being yourself and going at your own pace. And then Unikite Jasper, which is so much around authenticity and authentic self-expression and self-love. And then we put Pre-Night with Epidote there. And then 7th house Libra, I'm Libra. My key to liberation is letting go of old relationship patterns, including how you've learned relationships should be. I did not want to recreate my parents' marriage. That was my first and foremost priority as an adult. And so that definitely has been one of the themes of my life. You may carry past life trauma from marriages and partnerships. Relationships changed or ended, were chaotic, unpredictable, codependent, and you need the freedom to choose the people and forms of relationships that are most true to you. And that for sure has been me in my life. I was happy to get married, but it was going to be on my terms. I was going to write my own vows, right? I wrote my own vows with Dave because I refused to say that I was going to obey him and all these things. I was like, if that's what you want, you are so marrying the wrong chick. I'm not going to obey you. So Otter, which has healthy boundaries, delights in playfulness, and then Ruby, which is a stone of passion, but also authenticity and expression and Fuchsite, which helps to heal old patterns, karmic relationships. Yeah. And then 8th house Scorpio, your key to liberation is letting go of trauma, drama, intensity, especially in intimate relationships. Remember that 8th house is all intimacy, partnerships, sex. You need freedom to push the boundaries, pursue your own desires, even if other people don't like them or find them strange. That's not your problem. And making peace with your shadow, because sometimes 8th house people, Uranus and Scorpio, have desires that are different than other people have. It doesn't make them wrong, it just makes them different, and you got to sort out how you're going to indulge those desires in a way that works for you. So Bat is your creature. Initiation, rebirth, facing your fears, facing the truth. And then Red Aventurine, which anchors you in your own deepest truth. And Pink Moss Agate, which helps you to see the angelic lighter side of the challenges in your life. I know, Nietzsche's like, oh, my shadow. I totally get it. 9th house Sag, your key to liberation is letting go of old beliefs, rights and wrongs that no longer support your growth. You may carry trauma around religion or justice, belief systems, people who said there was one way to do it and it was their way or the highway. You may feel like you were born into a faith tradition that didn't really align with you. And so you need to find your own truth and your own way of understanding life, death, and the nature of the universe. And so Giraffe is your creature. New perceptions, being able to see a distance beyond your own path, following your vision with authenticity. And then Spectralite, which allows you to see all the colors of the spectrum, and Aquamarine, which is about emotional healing and renewal. Sag for you, yep. Okay, and then 10th house, which is Capricorn. And the 10th house is an interesting house to me. My son's in the 10th house, like my son in my chart. Sun in the 10th house people are always public figures. It's unavoidable. They just always are. Almost every United States president has had their sun in the 10th house, with the exception of our previous president, who I don't think had sun in the 10th house, and I'm not sure that Biden does either, but I think Obama did, Clinton did. There's a bunch of presidents who had sun in the 10th house. If your Uranus is in the 10th house, your key to liberation is letting go of expectations around your career, how you're going to make money, how you're going to communicate what you know, your responsibilities. You may have issues with authority, because 10th house is usually about authority and the expression of authority or leadership. Maybe you had to be too serious too fast. Could be one thing. You had to grow up too fast, and so now you kind of have to reclaim your youth. You may want to be your own boss. You may not want to work for anybody else. That's a prime example of Uranus in the 10th house, is you don't want to work for anybody else. You want to set your schedule. You don't want to be told you have to be in by 9 and out by 5 or whatever. You want to decide all of that. So the rat is your creature, because the rat is adaptable. It moves through tight spaces. It pursues its own goals. And I can tell you, because I have a lot of ratonas here at my house, they're very resourceful and also very cute. And then your crystals are Kambaba Jasper, which is very masculine, like finding the way through. And then Green Aventurine, which opens up new opportunities, new possibilities, creative outlets, which is also part of this profile. 11th house, Uranus in the 11th house and or Aquarius. Your key to liberation is letting go of anything that stands in the way. Sorry, I've been talking all day and my voice is really going. I don't have a drink, but we're only going to be together for a few more minutes, so I'm going to push through. Can you guys hear me okay, though? Like, it doesn't hurt me, but my voice is very, like, raspy. You want to be your own person and have authentic self-expression. And you may carry trauma connected to humanitarian efforts that you may have been part of in a past life, for example, trying to help people, which is very common. Maybe your ideas were seen as too radical, or maybe you're seen as too radical. You're too out there, you're too woo-woo, you're too airy-fairy, you know what I mean? You're so different from everybody else. Okay, good, I'm glad you can hear me. You may have felt cast out, like you weren't part of the cool group or the in group or any of those things, so that could be trauma for you. So you need to find allies who celebrate your differences in this life. And so the prairie dog, it's so cute. Prairie dog is your animal, community networking, engaging with life. Green zebra jasper is so good here because it's the stone of the wild within, or even just basic zebra jasper is really good too. And then red tiger's eye is about authentic expression, but in the root chakra. So it's all about going back to your origin story and reimagining who you are and why you're here. I need shungite water, I know. Yeah, so it's true. And Brittany James says this is her profile, and she feels kind of like a loner, kind of low key, because this profile's been judged a lot, in my experience. So it's one, Uranus and Aquarius, you're gonna have to find your own way and be brave enough to do it without worrying about judgment. And then 12th house Pisces, which is the last one. My Uranus is in the 12th house, so this is also for me. Your key to liberation is letting go of old karma that keeps you separated from unconditional love or feeling worthy of it, which has always been my thing. We carry past life trauma from loss, suffering, absence of faith. We have felt alone and helpless, and very sensitized to the pain of other people. We really, when those of us with Uranus in the 12th house say we understand your pain, we really understand your pain. We're not just saying that as like a tagline. It's like, no, I really get it. So we want to dream and explore, and we want to find new ways of living and dreaming so that we don't feel so constrained and we don't perpetuate pain for ourselves or for other people. And so the seal is our creature, lucid dreaming, imagination, listening to your inner voice. And then dream amethyst, or, dogtooth amethyst or banded amethyst, and labradorite, which is dreaming into a new possibility, a new vision for your life. Those are the stones for Uranus 12th house or Uranus in Pisces. How to embrace authenticity in a world that really doesn't know what to do with truly authentic people. Doesn't know how to categorize them, wants to put them in a box and close the lid, right? How do we actually embrace authenticity and liberation and freedom? This idea of moksha from the Sanskrit, right, which is just the freedom to pursue truth and beauty on your own terms. How do we pursue that in alignment with the reality of who we are, and also at a time like this on our planet when liberation seems not to be a cosmic priority? So hopefully this tonight has been, oh God, Alexis has an irrational fear of seals. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you. Seals to me, because I grew up here in LA, where there's seals on the rocks and they're always like, or. They just seem like the cutest little weird but funky and fun little weirdos. So it's funny to me that people would be afraid of them. I'll have to continue to do my seal impression for Alexis when we're back in the office together at the end of this year. I'm going to come up behind you, Alexis, and go, oh. I'm totally going to freak her out. I'm sorry, Alexis. They're really cute, but also scary. We should have shitty seals. Like, we have the little plastic cats, the shitty cats. We should have shitty seals, and then I'm going to leave them all over Alexis's space when we're back in the office. Yeah. Change her ringtone. Woo. Well, with that, session 1 of March is in the books. And I hope it was helpful and interesting to you. And there's work to be continued, obviously. We're going to continue to work with our potion that's taking us from calcination to dissolution, and we'll continue working with that during session 3. If anybody would like to stay for a few more minutes, I would love to answer any questions that you have. If you need to sign off, totally honor that too, and you're more than welcome to, because the main part of our content for tonight is complete. And thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. But I would love to answer any questions that you have for the next few minutes and see what's on your mind. I'm so glad. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Walking through your fears. That's right, Lisa Taylor. It's so true. No, you're very welcome. Yeah, we did. We put a relatively docile looking seal. I mean, look at him, Alexis. He just wants to be your friend, Alexis. Look at him. Bring him really up close to you, Alexis. Kimberly Wilson says she's staying, but her brain hurts. I love it. Yeah, we are going to burn that mush incense, and then I'm probably going to... Yeah, it's okay. It's in there with oils. Oils are preservatives. We're going to use it in 2 weeks from tonight, so it's not going to get that gross between now and then. Yeah, we will have all the notes for you, so don't worry. If you're new, we take notes for you so that you just get to kind of be and listen and learn. Because I like to just listen when I'm in a class. I don't want to feel like I'm having to write down every single word that the teacher is saying, because otherwise I can't. I have ADHD, so it's really hard for me to write and focus. So we do that for you because I think it's a great way to learn. Let's see. Alicia said, why does it seem like through my whole Sage Goddess journey that my spirit guides are leaving me chicken nuggets as if to say I'm on the right path? I don't know. Sacred nuggets? You want to label your mush? I like that idea. What are you going to call it? Vanya said, question, Athena, so you said Uranus 1969 is Virgo, but her chart shows Libra. Okay, so let me go back to that. There's a little bit of an overlap there. The source that I was looking at said 62 to 69 is Virgo, but 68 to 75 is Libra. I think technically if you're 69, maybe you're both. I'll have to ask Tara on my team. I'm happy to ask her. She's our resident astrologer. And she can conclusively say, Vanya, if you are... I have quite a few friends who were born in 69 because, you know, we're pretty much the same age. So I can also see what they think about that too. Jessica says, I'm having trouble figuring out what my crucible should have in it. How should I know what element I should be working with? So, you know what, Jessica, I'm going to tell you this, and I hope this helps you. It might help a lot of you, actually. Don't look for the common thread. Just write the paper. Afterward, you'll find the thread. I promise you. When I set out to write my crucible paper, I didn't really realize where it was going, that it was going to be all about fire and how fire has manifested in all these different ways. I wrote the paper, and then as I was writing it, I'm like, every single thing I'm writing about is fire. And it was earth-shattering. And my mentor, who assigned the assignment, pretty much told me the same thing. He was like, if you don't know what the common thread is, just write the paper and find the thread afterward. And so watch. You're gonna write that paper and be like, all I talk about is tears and rivers and ocean and, you know, I mean, and then it's water, right? Or you'll write it and the whole paper will be about, you know, your thoughts and your perspectives and how your perspectives have changed and how you used to overthink things, but now you're more open-minded, and then you're going to be like, oh my God, it's air. Don't overthink it. Let that common thread really emerge from the work, rather than you saying, I think it's air, and then you're trying to put air into all the parts of the paper. It's going to stifle your creative process. So I'm really glad you asked that question too. Let's see. Melissa says, so you said with the solution is not to be rushed through and mentioned interiora. What was after that? I don't know, but you'll need to check your notes. When I'm teaching, I don't hold on to every single thing that I've told you. So whatever the next train of thought was after that will hopefully be logged in your notes for you. Let's see. Blissful Heart, question for second house Taurus, letting go of old attachments to what you think keeps you secure. Yeah, well, so remember with Taurus is a sign that holds on to possessions. They're very good at keeping their money. They make money and they know how to keep it. They know how to save it. They know how to invest it. And so, but they have these, Taurus has this idea about what makes them safe, right? Like, do they have enough savings in the bank? And, you know, are their investments good? Or, you know, or that maybe they collect art or whatever, but they're always thinking about the future and their attachments and security. And so with Uranus and Taurus, one of the challenges that you might face is reimagining what makes you secure. You know, reimagining what it means to have possessions, or to secure your possessions, or to secure your own security. Because Taurus, it means a lot to Taurus. You know, their security, their financial security, their emotional security, all of that is very important to Taurus. Yeah. Penelope says, I'm all earth. What would earth look like in my crucible essay? How grounded you are. How connected to nature you might be. Could show up as being stubborn. Could show up as being rigid or consistent. There's light and shadow to all the elements, right? Just like a fire sign can be inspiring and, you know, exciting, but a fire sign can also be destructive and angry, right? So there's always these multiple sides to every element. Just like the water signs can be incredibly nurturing and loving and loyal, and but they can also be overbearing and emotionally manipulative and you know, kind of the water signs, when they go too far to that other side, they can really become almost too much for themselves. They can drown themselves in their emotions, right? Which to all fire like me, I'm like, I don't even know what that would be like, but I've seen it happen to people. I don't even have enough water to access that, but I've seen it happen. Yeah. Seals eat loud. I didn't know that. Whining, that's right. Just like fire signs can yell. I'm not a yeller because I grew up, my mom would raise her voice and my dad did not. And I remembered that the hearing of like yelling or raising of the voice always really like scared me. It kind of like blew my central nervous system. So I don't like yelling. I am very anti-yelling. My thing is, if you have to yell, you probably don't have a person's attention anyway. You should never have to raise your voice. Even with my kids, like I remember, I think Nick was like 4 or 5 years old and I yelled and he just started screaming and crying. He'd never heard me yell before. And I don't yell. So I think we both scared each other. I was like, I'm never yelling again. That was horrible. But that can be a way that fire shows up, just like yelling and like loud, you know, and stuff like that. So it just depends on how the emotions and the elements show up within you, you know? What would an element balanced crucible look like? I don't know. If I were to write my paper now, it would probably be a little bit more balanced. But I would also say to you candidly, fire continues to be the most prominent element in my life. Because of my constitution and my natal chart. There's just so much fire, it's really hard to override it. Yeah, Saya says I'm water sign. Every single time I try to yell, I lose my voice. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it would happen. That Scorpio energy just does not want the yelling. And my Mercury is in Cancer. So, and Mercury is your voice. Did you know that about your chart? So find out what sign your Mercury is in. That's your voice. How you communicate. And I communicate like a Cancer. Like when I talk, it sounds like I'm singing. It's kind of like I talk like in a lullaby. 'Cause I don't know, but Cancer, Mercury and Cancer people do that. So when I yell, it's like so weird because it's just not, I'm a water Mercury. I'm not a fire Mercury. Yeah, let's see. Oh, interesting. Yeah, Karen's the same way, but like opposite parents were doing it. Let's see. Christiana says, I'm air and fire. Does that mean I feed my own fire? Yeah, it does. Let's see. Karen says, I've drowned my Pisces self in the shadow often. Yeah, so maybe it's time to resurrect, revive, bring that part of you back to life. Yeah, Lisa, do it. Put mezcal in your ashes, girl. Put a little bit in. Mezcal is very sacred. Mezcal is when they take the bola of the agave plant in certain parts of Mexico, particularly Oaxaca, the state of Oaxaca. They take the bola, which is the main part of the agave plant, and they bake it, right? They cook it, they smoke it. And so mezcal is a very smoky kind of tequila, but it's a medicina, right? It's used as the base of what we call limpia. And limpia is we made this in Soul Shift, was it 2 years ago now? I think 2 years ago in January we made limpia. Well, limpia is a mezcal or tequila based mist that you make. It's kind of like a spirit water, right? But it's an entirely different base, and you add different herbs and you can add crystals to it. We did a whole thing around limpia, but mezcal is very sacred. Yeah. Let's see. Catherine says she's on the cusp of Capricorn Aquarius Sun, 0 degrees in the 10th house, but resonates deeply with the 11th house. Does a cusp affect the house? Not really. Not really. I mean, when you're on the cusp, it just means you enjoy sort of membership in both spaces. And so everybody who's on a cusp is naturally going to feel inclined more to one or the other. But if you're on the cusp, both of them are relevant to you, and eventually you may find that you gravitate more toward the 10th house at certain points in your life than the 11th house. It just sort of depends. Yeah, it's interesting. Amanda was saying that she, where'd you go, Amanda? I had you, Amanda. Oh, I lost you, Amanda. Mercury and Leo, yeah. So you communicate like a Leo. You roar. I don't roar, which is why most people don't guess that I'm a Leo, because I'm Libra rising and my Mercury's in Cancer. So I show up in the world kind of like, I'm a little bit of a people pleaser, and I'm a little bit soft-spoken sometimes, but underneath it all, I am just a blazing damn fire. Let's see. Yeah, EA has Mercury and Uranus are in Scorpio. So that's helpful. If your Mercury and your Uranus are aligned, like EA, then the way you communicate and how you seek liberation are connected. Take a peek stir at your Mercury. Take a peek stir at your Venus. Okay, and if you really want to get into this, take a peek stir at your Mars. Okay, your Mercury is how you communicate. Your Venus is how you love, and your Mars is how you fight. And so look for some overlap there. Now my rising sign is the same as my Uranus placement. So how you would perceive me when you first meet me and you don't know me is the same as how I pursue liberation and freedom. So you might see me as being very even keeled without knowing all the undertow of what's in my chart, right? But if how you love is aligned to how you pursue freedom, then that's interesting, right? If how you communicate, like me, well, actually not me, because my Uranus is not in Cancer, but if your Mercury and your Uranus were in the same placement, that would be an interesting, just information for you to have, right? And again, you can have a full natal chart analysis done to get this information, but you don't need it. So these are kind of some tools and tips that I can give you on how to get into your own chart and start to find these connections, because the synergies are everything. They tell you the whole story of who you are and why you're here. Yeah. Let's see. And so Brittany says, my Venus and Mars are both in Cap. I have lots of Cap placements. Callie, Mercury, Mars, both in Scorpio, Venus, and Virgo. So you've got some earth and some water there, right? Kimberly's having brain inflammation from tonight, which I totally understand. Blissful Heart, Uranus, Mercury, Moon, and the symbol on this month's correspondences. Tell me which symbol you're talking about. How would you read this? Are you looking for consistencies there? Um, the ninth house, well, you have to look at the ninth house in context, right? So the ninth house isn't just about travel. The ninth house is ruled by Sagittarius. So it isn't just physical travel, it's freedom. I mean, Sagittarians love to travel. My moon's in Sag. The minute I am allowed out of this country, I'm not going to be in this country for a little while. I'll be teaching my classes from abroad. I mean, I cannot believe I have not traveled. I think we've canceled a total of 9 trips in the last 15 months, which is insane. I'm a traveler, but that's my Sag moon. I don't actually like to be home all the time. I like to be in a plane, on the road, in a train, on a bus. In a different country, speaking a different language. That's my goal. So the ninth house, which is ruled by Sagittarius, is all about not just travel, but removing restrictions to communication, to expression, to love, to where you live, to how you communicate, to what you do for a living, to just not wanting constraints, right? So think of travel more broadly defined as like in and out of relationships, in and out of dynamics, in and out of the country, right? Like all those things. Yeah. We have rescheduled one of our trips like 4 times because most of them cannot be canceled. If you guys are travelers, you know what I'm talking about. You can't really cancel your trips and get a refund, so they just keep postponing them. So eventually I will be traveling a lot, but it's just like I've now postponed some of these trips like 2 and 3 times into 2022, and I'm just like, what is even happening here? I'm very excited to be moving again soon. I will take you, Alexis. I wish we were going to Tucson in April, but we just can't. I won't be vaccinated by then, so I know. I was just talking to one of my friends in the crystal community, and she's going, and I was like, poop, man. Don't rub it in. I can't go. It's just not safe. Let's see. Yeah, so freedom is liberation, right? And so if your Uranus is in Sag, this is your liberation truly, Siren of the Void, is probably one of your most strategic priorities. If your Uranus is in Sag, then that freedom of movement, literally physically from one location to another, but also energetically from one relationship to another, one dynamic to another, one energy to another, is probably so critical to you, I would assume, based on that placement. And so somebody who would come in and tell you how to love, where to live, how to think, how to feel, would probably drive you batty. That would not be a good recipe for you, is what I'm assuming. Why do I have to be vaccinated to go? Because I have an autoimmune disease, and I'm on an immunosuppressive medication, and so is my daughter, who's only 11. She's turning 12 on Monday. COVID for me would be very, very bad, and it would be worse for my child. So our house is on extreme lockdown until we are vaccinated. So I unfortunately I can't travel because the risk of exposing her to this, and me too, I wouldn't be able to fight it off. And because I have to support my team, obviously, I support all of you guys. If I were to contract this, it would not be the same as if a very, very healthy person contracted it. And so because I have extra risks, I also have to be very, very diligent in making sure that I don't expose myself in any way. And we've been very careful this year, and I've made a lot of sacrifices because I don't want to take time away from you. I don't want to take time away. I don't want to not be able to support my team. So it's been a real conscious sacrifice. No, unfortunately, there's no exceptions for people with my particular autoimmune disease. The only exception is for people in California with cancer right now. What I hear is that by March 15th, it'll be opening up. So I'm really hoping that in the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to get one. I have friends in other states who are eligible to get one and they're not getting one. So I'm always like, could you just throw that my way? But yeah, I wouldn't, it would be such a risk because of how much I do, for me to be exposed. So I have to be very, very careful. They call it keeping me in the bubble, but it would not be a recipe for anything good. Do you know what I mean? And some people in my position stop taking their medication, or are stopping their medication so that they can travel without being at risk, but that would jeopardize my life. So it's not really an option for me, unfortunately. So I'm in the bubble. Yeah, but I don't want to travel out of state for it because I don't want to get on a plane, and I don't want to. I just want to avoid it if I can. So I trust it's coming. Take the day off after my second. I'll plan for that. Yeah. I know. I don't like being in my bubble, but especially with my daughter, I just have to be so careful. You know what I mean? And I know one day I'll be really glad that I took all these precautions for her. So yeah. Aw, did she? Well, I'm happy for your mom that she got one. I'm waiting. I'm hoping it's going to be very soon. All right, you guys. Well, thank you for being here. Ooh, interesting. Christine said during Elder Council, she brought her fluorite Eye of Horus and put it on her belly button, and afterward it was broken. Well, remember, fluorite is very soft on the measure of hardness scale, the Mohs scale. It's very soft. It's like a 3. I think it's either a 2 or a 3. Fluorite's very, very soft. It's very fragile. So it's easy to break, but I think it's the energy that's coming through your solar plexus that kind of like busted it open, you know? So, you guys. Interesting. Well, thank you for letting me know about that in advance. I really appreciate it. I'm so grateful for you guys. Well, thank you for staying for the extra time too. It's always nice to be in your company. I'm never ready to go. You know what I mean? At the end of our time together. So I kind of like this option. What I've been doing is saying, okay, good night to anybody who wants to leave. And then just making it possible if you want to stay and hang out for you to do that. So for those of you who choose to stay, I think it's amazing. And for those who want to go and have dinner or go to bed, depending on your time zone, I totally get that too. So I'm glad this new structure and format is working for you. It makes me really happy. Yeah. Thanks, you guys. Yeah. All right, you guys. Mwah. It was great to be with you this evening. So tomorrow I am mostly offline, except for my, I go live daily on our main Facebook page. So if you want to hang out with me there. Friday is the new moon in Pisces. Your worksheets are already at sagegoddess.com. I don't have it right in my hands here to show you, but they're already there, I believe. So if you want to download your new moon worksheet, and then hopefully you'll join me at 6 p.m. on Friday night for new moon ceremony. It's so fitting to have a new moon in Pisces, and then it's Zoe's birthday on Monday. We're celebrating all weekend long, so she's very excited to be turning 12. And so yeah, I'll see you guys very soon. Thank you so much for being here. I hope it's been exciting to think about your liberation, and now you can set some new moon intentions about how you're going to activate that energy. It's awesome stuff. All right, thank you, Alexis. I love you too, and I'll see you soon. Have a good